from the center of the galaxy. This is ForceCenter, show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure of life itself. I'm Ken Napstok.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
There we go. All right. We are here live on a Monday. We might have some slight delay between us. Sorry for the delay. Here we are. Hello, and how are you?
All fine here, and blast the communicator. Yes.
Yes.
We're all good. Everything's fine. But yes, there's some last minute business being taken care of before we went live. Thank you to everybody who is here, and thank you for your patience. And it's nice to see in the chat a little bit of the discussion of how the snow is going. Yarnstead said, "Oh dear, maybe I've jinxed them due to our late start." Usually after watching the replay, did some of my Wisconsin snow get in the works? Haja says, waves to Wisconsin from West Scotland. Snow be one time there, I see. I have been following along in on social media and texting with my dad. The snow conditions in my hometown of Minneapolis, Minnesota are also extreme at the moment.
It's extreme here. It's 54 degrees today. It's extreme. It's extreme out here. But hey, we had the rain. We flooded. We had our problems this past week. So there we go.
Yeah, no.
Jennifer might join us. Part of the delay was trying to figure that out. So if not, Jennifer sends her regards. We'll see if she can join here, talk a little Star Wars news. We're also going to look back on 2025 a bit as the Star Wars years close. On Thursday, Joseph and I are releasing our look ahead 2026, which, Joseph, is a more robust year than we first thought.
It is. There's a lot going on to be excited about, and we talked all about it. All the books and comics we want to make time for, and video games. Plus, all the hey, Star Wars on screen. So excited to release that, and excited to hear what other people are excited about in 2026.
Indeed. We always like to remind you that today's show is brought to you by our own merch shop on Fourth Wall. Links down below if you're watching on YouTube. On the audio side, it's ForceCenter-shop.fourthwall.com. Pick up some Force Center merch like a t-shirt, pint glass, or more to help support the show. Subscribe here, too, if you're watching on YouTube as we build towards our next goal of 10,500 subscribers. Joseph, we didn't think we'd be this far, even though it was a goal. So we're thankful of all those who are on board.
Extremely thankful. This is still feels like a new adventure being full faces on YouTube, and we're very excited that we got to this goal of 10,000, and we're excited to build to more goals. I'm obsessed with Ahsoka for some reason, because Ahsoka season 1 was like initial goal of like, where will we be by then? And then we ran into some obstacles. So now I'm obsessed with where will we be when Ahsoka season 2 is released? How many people will be looking at our faces, Ken?
How many? Or will the trend to just go all back to audio take over? Because that's starting to happen now.
Maybe YouTube will become an audio-only platform, the way Instagram vastly prefers text. Instagram, the photo app, I have such a better response if I take a screenshot of a text-based joke and put it on the photo-sharing app, Instagram, than actual, be like, oh, beautiful sunset, bleep off. I want to see text of a joke from a different social media website. So you never know. Maybe YouTube will be all audio by next year.
Yeah, exactly. And then Acast will become the #1 provider of videos in the world. So there we go. There we go. We're going to look at some Star Wars news. Not a lot, as one would imagine, here at the end of the year. So that is me getting up the wrong sheet. Man, there it is. It's just been, long story short, there's just something popped up in my life literally 5 minutes before we were supposed to go to air, and I just need to calm down.
Yeah.
Breathe. Get there. And then once again, I brought up the wrong one. Sorry, Joseph. This is the most discombobulated I've been on a live stream in a long time.
Totally understandable. You got it?
I got it. It's loading. Here we go. Some Star Wars news. Ben Burtt, Dave Filoni, and others, a lot of others, honored for service to Lucasfilm. That sounds ominous, but they're just employees. They're long-time employees. 41 Lucasfilm employees were honored for 20 and 30 years of service. One was honored for 50 years. That, of course, was Ben Burtt, hired in 1975. Oh, that means, I'm getting there. As one of the only sound designers in the business at the time. Burtt, as we know, without a doubt, is an absolute legend. Dave Filoni was among the employees on it for 20 years of service. New kid on the block. He was hired in the spring of 2005, of course, for the Clone Wars series, plucked out of the Revenge of the Sith line dressed as Plo Koon and sent down the hallways to Lucasfilm. So, Joseph, real quickly, I mean, this is the story. We've talked a lot about Ben Burtt. We celebrated Ben Burtt a lot, and we will continue to. But what do we say about Ben Burtt and his 50 years of service?
Man, huge congratulations. And I think I think everybody who is a kind of all-in Star Wars fan knows the name Ben Burtt and knows, some of the legend of what he did and what he accomplished and what he continues to accomplish. But if you really want to just sink into appreciation of what he did, really can't recommend enough the documentary Making Waves, which I saw in a theater, but it's just available on YouTube. You can type Making Waves into YouTube. I was going to say right now, please not right now, after you're done watching it. Go watch Making Waves. It's a fascinating history of sound in cinema and the surprising ways and reasons that it changes. It's got so much great stuff with Ben Burtt about his early time and how it all happened. And a couple of things in that documentary that I learned that I really, really celebrate about Ben Burtt is how much he understood Star Wars and a part of Star Wars that I don't think a lot of other people understood, famously what George was trying to do. But I think some people got the sort of like, okay, we're going to do the tech stuff, and George Lucas is a good storyteller, and these Ralph McQuarrie drawings are amazing, so I get it. Maybe it's kind of like Metropolis or whatever. But Ben Burtt loved pulp. Ben Burtt loved serials. Ben Burtt loved old westerns and old noir movies. There's a great little segment in the Making Waves documentary where you get to see a little bit of a fan film that Ben Burtt made, just an indie film called Rod Flash Conquers Infinity, shot at the Vasquez Rocks with a stop motion dinosaur. Like, I obviously his creativity and everything he did to advance the idea of what sound design is, which is massive, is so important. But I just have to think that they talk about like him and George sitting around and him working at like George's house and talking about what R2-D2 should sound like, and what a balm it must have been for George Lucas to be surrounded by all of his auteur filmmaker buddies who are going, George, I don't know what the bleep you're doing. That George had at least this one guy who was like, yeah, I get it. Robots are cool. They're not a thing that you kind of have to suffer through to get to the myth or the art. They're cool. Lightsabers are cool. This is all cool, man. That I think is one of the legacies of Ben Burtt, is that he's a true lover of the pulp serial side of Star Wars.
Yeah, you're speaking about something that you and I have been even talking off air related to just George. Even the Lucasfilm Museum of George's style is he is the rebel in flannel. He is a very successful businessman, but he's got ways of doing it, and I think at times sometimes he might have people around him who don't understand just his methods, his visions, but that just makes me appreciate those around him that do understand. And there's a myriad people that understood George's vision, but people like John Williams, Ralph McQuarrie, and especially Ben Burtt got it, like all in. And I think a lot of the ILM guys too, and all the people that help build things out. But I just think that's why we're talking about all these people, because they are geniuses, and George is a genius on his own way too. But like, two geniuses don't necessarily have the same vision, and he was able to trust someone like Ben Burtt to go off with his gear and tap some wires and go, yeah, that's exactly what a blaster sounds like. So it's all wonderful, and that's when I think of Ben Burtt, that's what I think of someone who got it. Like you said, I think that's well said.
Yeah, and all of his contributions, all the editing in the prequel era and his work, I know that he talks about it being really proud of in the Young Indiana Jones, where he got to direct more, which he liked doing too. Other thing I want to say about Ben Burtt is, like, you hear all the Star Wars legends, and then you get to kind of know them, and you do appreciate them, right? But really putting yourself in the context of, like, George wanted to do something different with the sound. Walter Murch wanted to do different things with sound, and Walter Murch kind of leading them to discovering Ben Burtt. But the idea of, like, well, it's pretty well established in the industry that studios have a collection of sounds, and if you need a gunshot, here are the 3, and just pick one. Why would you go out and make a sound? And same thing with sci-fi. Like, we have these sets of sounds. Why would you go make one? In my own exploration of trying to create things, I run into extremely creative people who are said, and this is the way we do things. And it's really hard to go to somebody who is absolutely a master in their field and go, no, do it this new way. And I think sometimes we don't appreciate what it must have felt like to be in that moment, to be creative and exciting, but also to be like, we are bucking the system and everybody's telling us we are doing it wrong. And that, goes, of course, for ILM, but also just like for Ben Burtt, and just like, you can look back on it and just like, well, it's a natural evolution. Of course, is the way it always should have been. But the creativity to think Chewbacca should sound like that. Each laser bolt should be its own distinctive thing. Each ship should make its own noise, and they should be noises collected from the real world. That's all stuff that I'm sure other people are like, what are you doing? And it's visionary and brave to be able to try something new.
Yeah. It is. It absolutely is. Absolutely is. So 50 years is still going strong. I understand, around the time of episode 7, Matthew Wood, the apprentice, becomes the master, all those kind of things. And Burt seemed to kind of, I don't want to say pushed aside, but he wasn't as prominent, and that was a talking point for a while. But then he shows up as BDE in the video games, and he's still around, and he's still an employee. He's still got an employee badge and a parking spot, probably. That's great. I love that. Love that. And speaking of other employees, the influence of Dave Filoni, the man in the cowboy hat, is obvious. It's well documented. It's a discussion point, and here we are having it there. But what do we make of his 20-year career and counting with Lucasfilm? He is truly part of the new class. He is a kid from 2005.
I had a weird reaction that 20 years doesn't sound long enough. And I think that's partially just because I'm getting older, and like almost everything in my life was like, that happened 70 years ago. That happened 80, 40, 50, like all these anniversaries, like 20, that's nothing. Yeah. But it really is like the amount of impact that he has had. 20 years sounds kind of short. How do you feel about that? Does 20 years feel right to you, or does it feel like it should shorter, longer?
I've been hitting 20-year like friendship marks for some people, like 2005 when we met, kind of thing, and have some conversations about it. And it truly goes in a blink of an eye. And now we just sound like old people having this conversation, but like it blows my mind. And I always make the joke about, a band like Foo Fighters is still a new band to me because they showed up in 95. And it's like, the drummer of Nirvana has a band now. Filoni is no longer, new, but like, it also just speaks to, the importance of the next generation come along, because at one point he was the next generation, and we say now he was, the protege of George, and some people I think correctly say he's perhaps more the protege of Kathleen Kennedy now these days, as she worked to develop him even more. But it just speaks to one of the core tenets of Star Wars, that generational exchange, and at some point you aren't the lead in the story anymore, and I think George was getting to that and still evolved hands, up to his neck in Clone Wars, but it was Henry Gilroy, it was Dave, and Dave just he's got a passion for this, and for all the conversations that pop up around him, even some that we might start here. I think he's got some amazing skills. I think he's got some skills he needs to develop more, but I think he's got this passion for this thing, and that's what at the end of the day I love about Dave Filoni, and I love about listening to him talk about the episode 1 lightsaber fights, all stuff. I absolutely could listen to him for hours, but it speaks to what was once new is now even the old generation, and he gets it. And that's what that 20 years means to me as a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about him as a sort of a holder of legacy, and that gets talked about a lot. And I think obviously he talks about what he learned from George. I think the fact that he really understands and appreciates all of the Star Wars storytelling, and that sort of a yes and energy behind the scenes of Mandalorian, where he seems like he feels like when somebody comes to him with an idea, he tries to find a way to make it work while still respecting what's been done, and all those things. I think he really carries the sort of core morality of Star Wars with him, that he really gets what is this about and what do we have to respect. I think he respects the the combination of the pulp and the myth, the high and the low, the absurd and the profound. And so much of that what we talk about is legacy. But I find myself thinking about, but who is he? He's a human. He's an artist. He's not just trying to respect what George did to recreate it. He's trying to evolve it. And I was thinking about, like, what is specific about him? What is he interested in? And there's this sort of joke answer of wolves. But it's a personal aesthetic that he has drawn into Star Wars. But on a bigger picture, he's really interested in the fantasy part of space fantasy. He brings such a Tolkien energy to things. He really likes ambiguity. It's not just the Ahsoka lives, question mark t-shirt. Like, so much of Ahsoka season 1 is about we think we know what this person feels. We think we know what they want, but some ambiguity. He loves leaving a little bit of space for audience to interpret. As much as J.J. Abrams gets beaten up for the mystery box, I think J.J. might like that just as much, of having an audience that is patient and waits a long time for an answer about characters they care about. I think he super is invested in the shared universe of Star Wars, that to him, Luke Skywalker showing up is a feature, not a bug. So there's these things about him that are kind of unique as an artist. And I was curious about you, what you feel like is unique about Dave Filoni, not just as the carrier of legacy, but as this human putting his own stamp on Star Wars.
I think it is we love celebrating themes here, but I think he gets the why. He loves exploring the why, and he loves wrapping it up in a lot of different things. The mysticism, the weird stuff, some of the funny stuff, right? Clone Wars has some very overtly funny things. Even, as much as I'm not a fan of wordplay, but even some of the Clone Wars titles, which not necessarily all come from Dave, but as he drives the ship, like they're funny, they're cheeky, but they all also have great resonance. But he explores the why and understands the why, and brings that into his storytelling, and his wolves. So I just love that in terms of his aesthetic. We joke too. Again, it's not just him, and he's got a wonderful. And Dave would be the first to tell you I have a wonderful team around me in all the shows. I always want to be clear about that. I think Dave's always been pretty good about that, even though he's often in the center. But he never is disconnected from, what's fun about Star Wars? Ships landing, ships flying, taking the moment with a lightsaber igniting. Like, that's also why we buy the tickets to these things. That's why we're on the playgrounds. That's why we're buying the toys. How many times did you even turn something that wasn't a toy into a spaceship as a kid? Just flying, and he puts that all the way through. And that's why despite over the last couple of years, me having some little quibbles with some of the things Dave does, particularly live action with his direction style, I will defend him pretty strongly when someone does the whole playing with the action figures BS, because that is honoring actually why we all came here and the imagination that we all possess. And that's why we took those things off the screen and into our hands and played with them and told our own stories. I think he's doing that in his storytelling and still does.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I feel the same way about when people talk about, the criticism will be like, well, they need to move on from legacy characters and they're afraid that this won't be popular. So they threw in Vader, they threw in this character and all that. And I think he is so interested in that idea of an interconnected universe, in almost like a Tolkien map out the lore way and map out the ages and who would be affected by what. And I think it is, to me, his storytelling is far more about we are all connected, and what one person does affects another person. And this is, if somebody sends out a ripple in an ocean, this is the character that's going to respond, is very fascinating to me. And I think he does great work with that. Who is connected and why? If somebody is going to know the dark secrets to how to get to another galaxy, who would it be? Well, the Night Sisters are really old, so they would know. If Thrawn wants to partner with somebody, and he's gotten his ass handed to him by the Force. Who would he go to? Light sister, like, I think all that interconnectedness is, I think he imbues it with meaning. So to me, it doesn't feel ever like the ratings are down, let's throw in a Vader. It always feels purposeful.
It really does. It really does. Gets the why.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's it for Star Wars news. Bye, everybody.
Well, I have another Dave Filoni question for you, if you're up for it. I don't think this is happening at all because his Star Wars plate is so full. But if Lucasfilm announced we're giving / making Dave Filoni do a non-Star Wars project, would you be excited? And what would you expect out of that?
I would be excited. It'd probably be samurai themed.
Yeah.
I would be excited about that. Only because, we're here in ForceCenter. We're Star Wars. We've been talking about it 10, 11 years, but you and I do so many other things. Jen does so many other things. And during the strikes, we did Other Center. And yeah, we understand it's going to be a little less popular on the Star Wars podcast feed. But I like when artists get to go outside of their lanes, man. And it's something that, like, I'm always going to fight against. I know you fight against it. It's not even just like the algorithmic world we all live in, but just like I downright get resentful when someone's like, hey, ain't you the schmoes movie guy? How come you're talking politics? Like, because I'm a human being and an artist and want to talk about a bunch of things. I want to talk about, destroying the patriarchy on my stand-up set, and also poop jokes. Like, I do all of it. And I would love to see Dave explore that at some other time. Like, what would he tell? I think, I joke, but it probably be mythic in its own way. But it's like, it's same thing with, was it Coppola telling Lucas, tell you what, why don't you write yourself a simple, like, kind of romantic, nostalgic movie? Why don't you write something? Why don't you write a comedy, George? And American Graffiti comes out. I would love that with Dave.
Yeah, no, I mean, that challenge to him of like, yeah, you can't be, you're so serious and cold, you can't be human or real. And Lucas being like, I'll find a way to be human and real.
I'll show you.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, mate, if you just, people in the chat are talking about what if he worked on Trek or Shang-Chi too, and like, yeah, he's a great franchise guy, and it'd be amazing to see him in other franchises. If you just gave him, $100 million, he might make Samurais versus Wolves. Maybe he would just lean into the aesthetics that he loves and the meaning behind them, because it isn't just aesthetics. He plays with obviously the meanings of those things. But it would be really interesting for somebody to say, we need you to make something that is absolutely not genre. We need you to make a human drama where there is nothing magical or supernatural. And to see, like, how would he explore the themes that interest him in that way? I'd be fascinated.
I would want even like real specific guardrails on where I just watched it, even though it came out in 2019. I watched Last Christmas with Amelia Clark, Paul Feig's movie, Emma Thompson co-wrote. You watched it. We both. I really enjoyed the movie. Right? It is what it is. But it's so sweet. And Dave, you're gonna write a rom-com Christmas story. That's what you're doing. What's the why of that? I'd love that.
Oh, and Vulcan Nerd says, I want a Filoni mystery. Knives In by
Knives In.
Dave Filoni. And all of that is to just like credit him as he is his own individual artist, as well as being the keeper of Star Wars. And maybe sometimes that is some of his like deep attachment. And I think even possessiveness to Ahsoka, of he feels like maybe Ahsoka's a little bit of the avatar of him, the student that grew up.
I agree. Snips of it all. All right. That's truly Star Wars news. That's it, everybody. No, we're going to look ahead to our, we're going to look ahead to 2026 on an episode you and I already recorded. But now let's look back to our favorite moments of 2025. And I think on Friday, I'm around. I know you're traveling. We might do a live stream on Friday, call-in show. I want you out there in the audience to share your favorite moments of 2025 and maybe what you're looking forward to in 2026. But for right now, it's us. Looking back in 2025, kind of a wide open conversation here, Joseph. I didn't have a lot of questions for us to answer specifically, but I'll start here. Like, 2025 was full of Star Wars, even though it seems like it wasn't. just kind
Yeah.
of the way the world was, maybe, or maybe my own life. But we had the big end of Skeleton Crew, which went into
Mhm.
January. Got Andor season 2 and all the hype and the awards and all the stuff around that, and some great books and stuff in between. But and Visions Volume 3 as well, which we covered here. So thoughts on just the year overall in Star Wars?
Yeah, I don't know why it did. I mean, there's no movie, obviously, and Skeleton Crew
Yeah.
wasn't like I think people probably associate it more with the 2024 and the holiday season. But yeah, the big amazing finale
Yep.
was in this year. I think obviously people love Andor as they should, but I think because it is texturally different than other Star Wars, not the themes or the ideas to me,
Mm-hmm.
but the way the story is told does feel different, and the conversation is different because so many people that frankly don't like other parts of Star Wars like Andor. So it gives it this sort of different vibe because Andor was kind of in some ways for new stuff, the crowning jewel. One of the things that I put on my list of favorites of 2025 was the how the past evolves into the present, and that is the anniversary of Revenge of the Sith and the explosion of joy and fun around it, and my own personal experience of going to that 20th anniversary screening, deciding to go to the 40X screening, and almost being thrown out of the chair 72 times, needing to keep my hand
That's right.
over my
That's
whiskey because this is a video podcast. The whiskey, it's like a big cup, and the whiskey's down here. It's maybe in like the last, quarter of the glass. And I had to keep my hand on it the entire time because like every time Anakin turned his head, the whole chair, whoop, almost throw you out. So that was just like a fabulous way to see it and experience it in a new way. And you and I both talked about like it was so fun to see so many people dressed up and so many people who clearly grown up with the prequels, and so many cheers and so many people just entirely on board with this. And then also a little bit of the audience not being comfortable with the dark moments of the film and needing to kind of almost memify them in person. It was just like a fascinating experience across the board of how this what this film means to fans, how it's changed since it was released, and how it sits in our consciousness right now.
I'm glad you brought that up. I had a great experience with our friend Billy Patterson. Take me to the screening. We had the great reaction of just Anakin pulls, his ignites his blade to kill Source Bandim, and the younglings and the crowd cheers. And we were both like, really, Billy, a father now was like, this has affected me in a different way than it did 20 years ago. And just, but that's part of it is why I like looking back. We talk about this 20-year mark, but time has not just changed these films, but changed the way in which you engage with these Star Wars stories. And I have talked before, like when ForceCenter started, I despised General Grievous. I thought it was this great missed opportunity of this wonderful design of this great warrior. Instead, we get this hacking, broken coward. And then now here we are 10 years later, 10 years of discussing things in ForceCenter. I'm like, oh, that was the point. And now he's one of my favorite things in Star Wars. And so I could go back 20 years later in a theater and have a greater and deeper appreciation for the character of General Grievous and what he represented. And that's been part of it. That was a highlight, too, to go back to that film.
Yeah. To tie it back to good old Ben Burtt, too, one of my favorite things about Revenge of the Sith is just how incredibly upsettingly well done the sounds of Darth Sidious is. He has some guttural animal noises. You will be a strong Sith. It sounds so good. It's so upsetting. And I don't have the greatest sound setup at home. I got a sound bar that does stereo, right? So going to see a film for me is more about hearing a film that I don't get to hear. And it was so great to really hear Revenge of the Sith and to have Palpatine, these awful noises coming at me from every side was a fantastic experience.
Great experience. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
Other specific moments for you? Anything that stands out?
Yeah, it was really interesting to just sort of close my eyes and think about what was impactful. And I think there were two images. One was from Skeleton Crew. And And it's just the image at the very end of that episode, just of the final episode. I love Jod's look that has some ambiguity to it of what exactly is he smiling about, how much of a smile is that. I love that discussion, but I'm just really affected by the end of Wim watching those fighters take off. And I think Skeleton Crew is elegant storytelling in a ton of ways. But, I think a lot of us, we discussed like, oh, we wanted more ending. We wanted cut to 6 months later. And, the Lord of the Rings ending of where did everybody end up and who got off that ship? Was that the Tantive 4, and even after all of us discussing that, it feels like the general energy of the community was, we're actually fine with that image. Is the ending, because it was it just so elegantly made you feel what Wim does of, hey, I was right. I'm a part of a large story and anything is possible. And I don't have to be a part of the great work. I don't have to be shoved into this box because that's the way it's always been. I can soar and I can be anything. And, that to me is visual storytelling at its very best, when it makes you feel. It's like this whole thing is an essay, and the image is just a thing that makes you feel the truth of this argument that the show has been making of like, this is the way a kid should feel, that they can be and do anything and be a part of something. It's just such a beautiful image, and I'm so happy for it.
I'm glad you brought it up. It's perhaps the thing I love most about Star Wars this year. And yes, we're going to get to Andor, something I love with all of my heart. But I was moved by Skeleton Crew in ways that I guess I could say I didn't even expect. We had, first of all, the series was delayed for so long, and there was like, what is this? And there's this great mystery wrapped around it that is part of the fun conceit of the show. That was a fun journey. But I'm both was moved by the kids, not just for me, but for others, but also like it succeeded in taking me back, not in a nostalgic way, because that can be thrown around as a bad word, but just to the core of why we love this thing, and to experience that into 2024, into 2025, of like, this thing doesn't have it is Star Wars to its core, but it doesn't look as connected as other things. And again, that word, connected, bad word. But I just was like surprised, like this is striking a chord. It's reminding me of why I bought the ticket to this franchise in the first place. Well, my parents did, but why I keep coming back, and why 10 years on, ForceCenter is still something that I view as a job, but also something that I'm so happy and honored to be a part of, because this has helped me celebrate that. Then on the flip side was like this kind of for me personally, like this haunting journey of Jod and Norwood. Played beautifully. One of my favorite performances. You're right. That ending is so ambiguous. It's so wonderfully vague, but also being specific in a way I can't even fully explain. And I love that 2025, this character, Jod Norwood, is introduced to me. And I knew at the time, and I think you might feel the same way, like this is a character I'm going to be revisiting at different points in my life to find out what it means to be even more. There's just something about his good heart, his damaged past, the bad choices he makes, who he's trying to be, who he wants to be, who he's afraid to be. It was just perfect foil for the kids, and the kids foil for him. But like, I was emotionally haunted at times. I keep going back to that phrase because it got me in that way. And I love, that's my favorite part of Star Wars this year.
Yeah. I mean, I thought what was so powerful about it is I think he is a character that we all see has the possibility for that sort of that hope that feels foolish and childlike of maybe the world can be better. Maybe I can be better. And he has so shut down those things within himself of like, it's a crappy world. The person with the bigger blaster wins, period.
Yeah.
And the kids defy those beliefs. And is there a part of him that's like, that smile is like, I gotta believe in myself again a little bit. Damn it. I gotta tap. You know, sometimes when you're like, I'd rather not be hopeful, because it's easier to be an old grump who's certain about everything. But then something happens, you're like, I gotta be hopeful. The kids were right. I gotta be hopeful.
Indeed. Indeed.
Good comment here from King Swartz Cal. I just got sold a ticket to watch Crew.
There you go, Kingsport. There you go,
Yeah,
Kingsport.
and feel free to weigh in the comments if you have thoughts on Skeleton Crew as well.
Indeed. Yeah, Yarnstead saying love Skeleton Crew. Looking forward to rewatch soon. Yeah, I during the spring and summer rewatched pretty much all the Star Wars shows. I have to, Mandalorian. I'm saving that for early May, but I knew I loved Skeleton Crew. Right, I had so much fun. We had so much fun discussing it, and I kind of was like, I don't know if I want to rewatch this. You know, you do that thing where you just kind of replay all the moments. You're like, yeah, okay. It's so fresh in my mind. Maybe I don't need to rewatch it. And then by midway through the first episode, I just was swept away again, and it's such a good series. So I don't think we'll get a second season, even though they want to. I think those characters could live on. I'd love to see that. But to your point at the ending, I'm good. Like this was like a movie, and the story, and I'm good.
Yeah. Balgaz says the show seemed very complete in itself, but it would be nice to see the characters again. Yeah.
Yep.
My wife and I are watching the final season of Stranger Things, and the schedule of that put those poor kids who became adult actors in a difficult place. It would be great if 3 years from now they made Skeleton Crew and the kids were grown up, or whatever the time frame is, and coming face to face with Jod and Alwood as they step into full adulthood would be fascinating.
Full adulthood, indeed. Other favorite moments. Some of them for me. We could jump into Andor a little bit later, unless you want to next here. That's a bigger conversation. But just
I got some Andor thoughts eventually. But yeah,
indeed, yeah, and just they do have a good review on StarWars.com. Just if anyone needs to be reminded. But even though the Tales of series, I loved. I can't wait for more Tales of the Underwood. If we're ranking things, it was my third on a list of 3, and that's not to be taken seriously, but. I between Bad Batch and then actually sitting down with new Asajj Ventress storytelling, one of my favorite moments too. There's so much more to do with the character. I think that those 3 episodes were good stuff. And I liked it a little bit more than Cad Bane stuff. That was fun too. But you know what I mean? Just like not even worried about what the content was of the story, but just the fact that here we are years later. And we got new Asajj Ventress stuff, meaning anything could happen. Because I read that she died, and and getting to explore the why again, and what Dave sometimes jots down on his his cocktail napkins on flights from San Francisco to Burbank. It can be just a proof that the story can go on if you got a good why. And I love that Asajj was front and center again.
Yeah, the return of Asajj is definitely on my list, and I really enjoyed all the tales of. I think those tales of they've set a bar. I think of when are they just going to be little vignettes that have a great emotion to them? When are they going to feel a little bit like the Asajj did, like the pilot episode for More Time with Asajj? When are they going to kind of answer questions that are either like, cool, more details about Elsbeth, great, now I know, versus like how Yaddle died, and they've got a lot going on into them. When sometimes they're just little tone poems about a character, sometimes they really fill out a little bit of lore. So I almost feel like Tales of the Underworld suffered from, they were more, it was how did Asajj come back was a big thing, but other than that they felt a little bit more like, here are tone poems. Here's how 2 people who have been affiliated with crime, how do they deal with the younger generation? How do they deal with when they are confronted with, they can become a good role model or a bad role model? How do they answer the call? And I was very surprised by that was Asajj's story, but it also just makes a lot of sense of like, okay, this character needs something to live for. She has always lived for anger and vengeance, and then she kind of was just getting by as a bounty hunter with a soft spot for traumatized children like herself. Fell in love with Quinlan. I love the weird twist of you're alive, but you can't just run from Quinlan. So now you can fall back into bitterness and anger and revenge, or you can listen to this instinct where you've always wanted to look out for kids who had it rough like you did, and just fully answer that call and just let hope and in a little bit. I think it's a beautiful story. I think if you watch it really fast and just like, what's the deal? You know, she can meet Queen and then she can. It's like, I think you really enjoy it more if you just calm down. Just like, this is just about who this woman is, and you know, she gets a second chance at life, and what does she choose to be her second chance at life, third chance maybe.
Excellent breakdown and a well said on that, Eddie. You're making me think even more of like the first 2 volumes of Tales of the Underwood. Underwood?
Tales a great typewriter.
Tales of. Oh, sorry. It's been an afternoon. We're both so good. You know, the Ahsoka stuff is great, but the Dooku stuff with young Qui-Gon, some of my favorite stuff in Star Wars, and then the Barriss Offee stuff is I'll use the term haunting again. I love those. You know, it set the bar so high to not just good Star Wars with answers and lore questions that are finally getting resolved. Just like I was moved by those, right? And we love being moved by Star Wars. And sometimes it's like when your favorite band releases like 3 songs that change your life, and the 4th one's a song about going to the movies, and you're like, but that's a great song, but I wanted it. And I think this last round, the Cad Bane stuff in particular, like I think I had a little bit of expectations, and I love the way you're describing the Ventress stuff, and it's there, and I'm going to revisit both of those. So anyways, I just was justifying for myself why I ranked them quote unquote low, but maybe I need to revisit. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm excited to rewatch the Ventress ones. Like the Cad Bane ones I really appreciate, and I think they have heart to them, but the Saj one, she's also just a great, fun character to spend time with.
Yes.
And as Nicholas points out, we'll soon be able to compare Ventress, and she does with her second chances, to Maul with his new series. Very much agreed. Very, very much agreed. Vulcan Nerd says hopes for Tales of the Nanawood coming to Disney Plus soon. Agreed with that. I will interject this real quick from our friend Chris Ryan's The Legacy of Vader, Reign of Kylo Ren comics run, and Dr. Afra Chaos Agent miniseries are my favorite comics for 2025. The Legacy of Vader has been fantastic, and I kind of I collect 3 or 4 issues and I gobble them up. But I look forward to revisiting them. There's some amazing stuff in there for the character of Kylo, and also for like lots of just sort of stitching together the legacy of Vader and what do other people think it is. It's that comic is so much about Kylo coming up with like, well, this is how I need to think about Vader and my relationship to him to be okay with it. I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to try to make the way I need to think about this work for me. And then it kind of works and it kind of doesn't. And he keeps getting his legs kicked out from under him. But it's also really fascinating to visit these places and have lots of other people go, oh, this is who Vader was. This is who Anakin was. And have Kylo have to wrestle with that.
It's on my list to catch up to those. I don't get the comics anymore, but I can get them digitally, I'm sure. And I want to revisit that one there. Good
collected volume of the first several, issues too. So easy to get caught up on.
In the time remaining, I know we want to get to Andor. One thing I'll toss in there is it's more about anticipating next year and beyond. But one of my favorite things of 2025 was just getting more confirmation for Star Wars Starfighter, or at least not necessarily specifically the project, but just that this is what's happening. And including Mandalorian Grogu, still excited for a new Jedi Order film. Still would love Big Jim Mangold to make his film. All those things, all those big questions that we can discuss all the time. But that was part of the fun this year of like, oh, okay, after years of announcements that faltered and all those kind of things that have been documented, blah, 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 blah. Not concerned about that, but just like, oh, we're on set with Ryan Gosling in his pants. We got a teaser Mandalorian Grogu, and Jeremy Allen White is Yes Chef going to be in the film voicing Rudder, like all that kind of stuff. It's just fun as a Star Wars fan, and that's more about looking forward. But it happened this year. That's the stuff that kind of really emerged for me this year around those projects.
Yeah, the building hype and the announcement of original cut of the first Star Wars film getting the attention it needs for preservation, and also being released for us to see. That's fantastic. Before Andor, 2 quick little things, Ken. That is, I'm really trying to be aware of, talking about Star Wars on podcasts and YouTube. You get the pop when there's a new thing coming out on the screen in books, comics, right? But so much of our lives, all of us, of enjoying Star Wars fans is how do we bring it into our lives? And sometimes it's a new thing, sometimes it's an old things. There every year, the website communitygalacticfigures.com has a vote for top 5 Black Series figures and top 5 vintage figures. And a lot of times the action figure community is very centered on villains and troopers and cool figures and all that. But it was just there were some fun surprises. The Stranger was in the top 5 of Black Series figures.
Yeah.
For a community that a lot of people don't like Acolyte for lots of reasons. But the Stranger was in the top 5. In the vintage collection, Asajj was in the top 5. Balin was number 1. There's a love being reflected in the figures, not just of let's do all the classic characters, but a love of the new stuff. And that was really fun to see in the action figure community, because I think it's kind of a bellwether for, even with all the negativity out there, there is so much excitement for new characters.
I love that. Great point. Yeah, I know that the Star Wars toy industry is at a different spot. I get it for a lot of different reasons. That we've talked about, including, tariffs making things a little expensive to ship on out. But I absolutely love what you're saying. Yeah.
And Phantom, I apologize. I don't know the correct pronunciation. Taku. Yeah. The Stranger has a fantastic design, though. Yes, I absolutely agree. You're right. And I think a lot of people are that maybe voted for him are like, he's the only good part of the Acolyte. Sure. Fully recognize that. But I have also seen in my lifetime individual humans are like, I hate the prequels. They're awful. Okay, the Naboo Starfighter is pretty cool, so I'll get a Hot Toys. And then 5 years later, still think most of Phantom Menace is bad, but here are the 8 parts that are actually cool. To 5 years after that, like, actually, I'm all in. And I always have been. The loving one part of a thing is the doorway to people reevaluating an entire thing. Sometimes. That's the experience that I've had.
Sometimes.
And that's my hope. And people are like, yeah, the cool badass with the awesome design, the awesome helmet is the only part of the show that doesn't suck. To me, is an entry point in a little tiny light of hope.
It's a pathway to what some might consider peaceful and relaxing and joyful.
Yes.
Indeed.
Final one I want to shout out real quick. There's nothing new about this. It is an old book about an old movie, but it's new to me in 2025. Mentioned this before. The British Film Institute, BFI, has a series of short essay books called BFI Classics about different movies. And I read the one about Star Wars, the original film Star Wars. And it was fantastic. And that was one of my highlights of Star Wars this year, because I'm really into behind the scenes when I want to break from the drama of modern times. It's very fun to read about the behind the scenes of times gone by. And I would really highly recommend that to anybody who's interested in a different perspective on the making of the original film.
Love that. No, love that. Yeah, I love discovering like you used to always say, my favorite song or movie is often what I watched that year, not what came from that year, because that's when your soul discovers it. So I love stories like that. Well, all right. We got a few minutes left here in the live stream. We got a super chat we'll answer. But, 2025 did have the second season of a rather popular political suspense thriller set in the Star Wars galaxy, Andor and his friends. Andor and his merry band of friends. Look, without a doubt, I love this show, and I think the second season is an absolute achievement, and some of my favorite Star Wars is in this show. I'm just taking this opportunity to say that, even from Andor's first episode to its last one, there's always that angle of you're going to step in a conversation you don't want to have when you're out and about in the wild and someone says, hey, you like that Andor? Like, you just sometimes can assume what's behind it. Not all the time, to be clear, but sometimes you might know what's coming, right? And after 10 years of this, I have, or more, going to our Jedi Alliance days and everything, but I have just built up this hard shell that sometimes I need to soften. And so I'm just acknowledging now that, sometimes I get a little defensive. Sometimes I'll scream, Bad Batch is politically stronger than Andor. And then next, I'm screaming at people in a bar over whiskey. I want to move on from that in 2026, and I'm starting right here, right now, saying of Andor, in and of itself, is to me some of my favorite Star Wars. It's wonderfully made. It does not take away from any of the things else I love, but I was moved with everyone, haunted. My word of the day, haunted. And I love that final episode, including the montage that Gilroy and his team were like, we definitely don't want to have a montage heading into the, I mean, not quite montage, but like it was in a way. Yeah, it was. But even there's a why behind it. There is Clea's smile and seeing the sunshine that Luthen did not get to see. Everything about it has been talked about and will be continued to be dissected. But it was an absolute joy, and it was part of this Star Wars year for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Andor season 2 was a massive highlight. I enjoyed it even more than season 1. I think season 1 is amazing, but I think partially because I was busy working on the horror film that I was doing all the post-production for, that I kind of knew, like, I only have a threshold for a certain level of stress. And I just decided, like, I know I have friends that I like who are like, the rest of Star Wars sucks, but this is brilliant, instead of the dumb puppets and everything. And that used to get on my nerves so much, and I had to release it. So
I'm working.
Yeah. So I was just like, you know what? Yes, all those conversations are, I love Andor, yay. And also everything else sucks. Like, you following a path I cannot go down, right? Kind of like there's an insult hidden in every compliment feeling. It's not great.
Yeah.
But it's just like, you know what? I'm just gonna focus on the compliments. That I love it too. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. And also for me, I am thrilled that they released it the way that they did. I think it was a lot to watch, and it was a lot to absorb, but it was basically like, a movie. And like, I would have been frustrated by the second episode, the middle episode of the first arc, where part of the point is the dumb rebels are not coalescing. They're not seeing the big picture. There's just infighting. And our main character Andor is mostly just tied up trying to say, "Stop it, idiots," and nobody will listen to him. And if that had been really the episode that week, I would have felt frustrated. And instead, it was like it was a part of this 3-act structure, and I really liked that they presented us those arcs that felt like a complete meal. So that helped me really, really, really put any of that stuff out of my mind and just enjoy the storytelling. And I think for me, individual ideas and images, Clea's smile is the biggest one. That when I think about it, it's Clea's smile. It's this story of Luthen and this ambiguity, and people feel different ways about, was his perspective needed, or was it a poison to himself ultimately, that he couldn't imagine a version of this battle where there was sunlight or dawn for him? Would he have made different choices? Could he have lived to see a smile? But the fact that Clea was so hard, so dark, and again, I've talked about it again and again. It isn't just like, I survived and people on Yavin don't want to hang me. It's that it's the fact that what she's looking out on isn't just the dawn. It's like that little Star Wars marching band. And what she sees is community. She sees that she built something that isn't just about using the enemy's tools against them. It isn't just about hitting the Empire as hard as possible. It isn't just about fighting what you hate. It's about saving what you love. It's about building community, and everything that is so coded into that first Star Wars film of the punk rock, the rebel, the individualism that comes together to form something. Her smile just contains so much, and it's so beautifully acted and so earned. I just love it.
Yeah, I think that moment, I'm glad you highlighted it, and because I think it does, I don't know if it changes the Luthen conversation for me, but like I was definitely someone coming out of season 1, and I think you were in the same ballpark of just like, Luthen ain't the clean hero. Like I got a little grumpy, and I still I think the show dealt with it perfectly, where he did help build this. He also hurt people, and also I think one of the questions the show will continue to ask, based because of her smile and her kind of seeing what was formed, is like, Luthen, you could have chosen another way. You could have been here. You could have been here. And that's part of the frustration I have, because I think we do that in our own lives. Or there's other movies. Kanan's a great example of, he had that sacrifice. It's Kobayashi Mayu. Like, you're not getting out of that. You know what I mean? Like this is, but there's other times you ever watch a movie where someone's like, no, you going ahead. It's like, shut the bleep up. Come on. You could choose something different. And I think that's part of what Luthen was about. Like, everything, it evolved into this second season to a more robust conversation about his choices and what he did, and where he was right, where he was needed, but where he was very wrong. Like, and it all kind of boils down to that final moment with her.
Yeah, no, and I know a lot of people interpret it as it's a sacrifice. Maybe he even thought of going to Yavin, but he was certain that he needed to stay on Coruscant. But how does that go along with all of the comments he makes about building something that he'll never see or benefit from, and saying, Andrew, this absolutely ends with us being hanged. That's just the way it ends. His certainty is really, really interesting stuff. I also want to share this from Haja. The Force healer was such a great touch in Andor. So agree. I think that we've talked about it a ton, but I love all the scenes. I love that thank you, that it isn't just like, it's not just plot. It's not just, we got to get Force in here, that it is so meaningful to her of like, you're carrying hope. You are hope. And I haven't felt that in so long. And thank you. Really beautiful.
No, beautiful stuff all the way through it. And it's going to be a worthy rewatch and revisit. But I haven't had, it is heavy, right? It's a different kind of Star Wars. Oh, and that's one of the things too I want to discuss of Andor in the second season, and me trying to, call up my own faults as a pundit or a fan, and try not to be as grouchy, even trying to forgive season 1 for ending an episode on Andor having a snack and looking at a battle plan, something that still kind of causes my fist to grow. But also part of the ongoing fight is this quote unquote adult Star Wars, and how I do fight against that in some ways, because I think you need to keep with the core tenets of Star Wars being about the next generation, being a myth for the next generation. But I also can't deny that we're 50 years on, and many generations have grown up with this. Those prequel babies are in their 30s with babies, or older. And I have to, acknowledge that. And I came to a really good spot where that's no longer this kind of like conversational trigger for me. If you go like, I'm just so glad Star Wars is adult. No, Star Wars is big enough to speak specifically to those who have already grown up with it, and that maybe for reasons outside of anyone's wants or desires, like you and I were raised in the generation, Jen raised in the generation to put the toys up on the shelf. So sometimes you might have that natural reaction to prequels or Book of Boba Fett or Grogu even, or, and then we're going to have the conversation around Mandalorian Grogu about it being for kids and all that stuff's going to happen. But like second season of Andor made me appreciate like, it's okay to speak to those fans where they need their Star Wars, where they need to feel it. And that changed for me a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's been nice the last couple of weeks when people have been celebrating young Jedi adventures and how important that is as a perspective on Star Wars. And it can be everything from the very dark, very mature stuff that's happening in Andor, and the young Jedi adventures is an entry point. And I do feel like Andor is a show that dove deeply into the political side, but I think really in season 2 brought home the spiritual side of Star Wars in a lot of ways. In not just the literal inclusion of the Force, but like this fight, what are you losing in this fight? What are you giving up in this fight? How do you hold on to yourself while fighting, being your whole life, which so much of it was about? How do you keep your humanity while fighting? And one of those stories was Vel and Cinta. Ayadja says, Vel and Cinta was such a powerful, emotional, and sad story. As part of the queer community, it resonated with me. # I have friends everywhere. I think that's incredibly important and incredibly great. Their storytelling was, yes, tragic, but also just fantastic. That feeling of relief of we can take down all these barriers between us and connect. And that phrase, I have friends everywhere. the whole Friends Everywhere I've seen a lot on social media, and I think is really good and powerful.
Or in real life at protests, right? Signs.
Yeah, welcome home. That's a great moment too from that very first episode. When Andor tells her, you've woken up to what you know is wrong and you're doing something about it. Welcome home.
Yeah, indeed. Much more discussed about Andor. There was even comments that came out this week. Was it from Tony or maybe Dan? I don't know, of them saying, I don't think Andor is left leaning. I think it's just, it's not that way. And I'm fascinated by that because I actually agree with them in the sense of like, no, we didn't do that. We just told this story. And I think if you're connecting it in a way and it feels like a way, that's just because that's history and that's a story and that's what we set out to do. And a bigger conversation, but something that Andor in 2025 brought up a lot. Part of the highlight for the year, having those discussions.
Absolutely.
Any final things on Andor? We have a couple of questions to get to, and then we can head on home.
No, I think those are some of my best ofs. I could go on and on, but I'm gonna stop myself.
Yes, indeed. David Mackay asks, "Rebuild the Galaxy," the Lego film. I did not watch that. I think you might have skipped it too, or not. I can't. Skipped it implies we didn't want to watch it.
I didn't watch it. You know what? My experience with the Lego shows are like I always enjoy them, but I feel like that there is there's a tonal consistency between them that I feel like I need to be in. I'm going to watch it when I'm in the mood for exactly that because it's always good, but it's always to me a very similar sensibility, and I'm going to watch it sometime when I'm in the right mood.
Me and my Chihuahua are going to watch it over lunch one day.
It was the second season of Rebuild, says David.
Yes, I watched.
That shows how much we're paying attention.
I watched the first one, and if I'm being honest, I just kind of went, all right, and went on with my lunch. Mike Fink asks, "Hey, just joined the chat. Not sure if you discussed the new Bad Batch comic run. Going to get the first issue. No, did not. As we are famously behind on all of our comics. But that and Bad Batch Sanctuary came out, and I just love that the storytelling continues.
Yeah, I'm glad that the Star Wars tradition of once characters are in the galaxy, you can keep telling stories about them as long as you have a little bit of room for it.
Indeed.
So I didn't have time to for either of those, but I'm super glad they exist.
We got this question from Gaz Nottingham. What is the general consensus on Ventress making past 0 BBY and beyond? It's a good question.
I kind of want her to, because I kind of feel like, you know what?
Yeah.
Just make plenty of room for Ventress storytelling.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd still put some money down on not surviving, but she might beat the point spread. And what I would want from that is if she comes back, she's brought back to life, resurrected, details to be filled in, but kind of on some of the stuff you said later, like she earns peace in my heart. You know what I mean? And I would love for her to die at a very old age with everything complete behind her. No matter if she gets involved with this story, that movie, this and that, doesn't matter. Like just as a character, treating it real, like she seems to be on the right path, right? And that's what the story's about. So you know what? As you know, Doc Holliday got to die with your shoes off on your deathbed, not out of violence.
Yeah, reminder from the chat, Ventress was originally planned to appear in Star Wars Resistance. I feel like she's on this really interesting path of, I think, intersecting with the path as it was established in the Kenobi show of saying, my purpose in this is to make sure that other people don't get caught up in this, other children don't get caught up in this. So I think that's kind of a path through to the future for her. And I just like that for her. And, you know, we've got some characters, like I'm not going to name them in case there's spoilers, that they don't have that much timeline to play with. And Sasha's so great. We brought her back once. I just want her to have plenty of time on her timeline to play with.
Yeah, indeed. Final question, super chat from our buddy Kingsport Kyle out there in Kingsport, Tennessee. Stay warm, Kyle. Will we ever get a Quinlan Vos TV show movie? Building off what you said there, in looking ahead to 2026, our episode coming out Wednesday, I kind of forgot that the hopes of a Path show, animated or live action, were all the rage, and I almost kind of forgot about that. I think whether it's tied to something like that, the name showing up in Kenobi was a wonderful moment. Ventress, all the stuff, but we know Ventress can't necessarily be pursuing Quinlan. She's got to do some other things with her life, all those kind of things that have been discussed. Yeah, I'm intrigued. I don't know quite where to fit it now because I don't think there's going to be a Path show. But I'm intrigued that he survived, and that would be a great Kenobi season 2. Is Kenobi training with Qui-Gon and his old pal who kind of annoys him, Quinlan, showing back up.
That would be fantastic. I really hope we get some Quinlan storytelling. I think he is a great character who deserves more storytelling, and I bet Lucasfilm has lots of pitches on their desk, and I think to me it's an entirely a business thing about how would that fit into live action animated. So excited for Maul Shadow Lord, but I think a lot of us were predicting and hoping for a Path animated show, and Maul was like, no. Yeah. I'm very excited for Maul. Also want to reflect quickly that lots of people were sharing their love of Rebuild the Galaxy, so that gets me excited to check it out.
Indeed. All right. I think that's it for our look at 2025. It was a good year in Star Wars. Like I said, it's understandable that you might think it was a smaller year. We're coming out of the strikes of 2023. The industry is just in a topsy-turvy state right now. So Star Wars was part of that, but there were some big things that came out and some joy to be had, and a big year ahead in 2026 and a big year beyond that in 2027, which is what we talk about on Wednesday's show there. All right. There you go, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Also, I know, Joseph, you are traveling for the holiday. I think I'll be around Friday, like I said. So we'll do a call-in live show if anyone out there is interested to there. Jennifer sends her regards. Thank you all for watching. You can find us on social media at ForceCenter Pod. You can support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter. If you want to call into that show on Friday, that's how you do it, through Patreon. Not even Discord. The link is specific to Patreon. But through Patreon, you get into our Discord there. Check out our merch shop. Check out the podcast feed. Watch Databank Brawl on Sundays, or listen on Sundays. Follow me at KenNapzok, or go to my website, kennapzok.com for more. Where can they find and follow you, sir?
You can find me on all the social media at Joseph Scrimshaw, and you can check out my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for links to all the stuff I'm doing. In January, I'm finally going to be putting out some of these short films I've been working on as a way to build up toward getting Dead Media released, the feature film I've been working on. Thank you all for your support on that.
There you go. All right. Thank you all for watching, listening, contributing. We'll see you next time here on ForceCenter.